Well, I usually pull out my headphone, but I'm glad I had it here with me today because it's raining cats and dogs in Belmopan. Looking forward, I'm hoping that within the next hour, when we're through, I won't melt, when I go out there. But glad to be here, Yaya. Looking forward to the conversation surrounding, working in COVID-19. It's really good to be back. And I definitely look forward to re-engaging once again with our regular listeners and viewers.
Well, I tell you, Brother Dean, the set got me feeling good tonight. I mean, people come out. They must have missed that 2 weeks. Thanks everyone for showing up. We have our regulars like Cynthia Pitts, Musele. Much people got. We have 7 people. We have brother Nelson Young, seasoned unionist. Respect for being with us tonight, Brother Nelson Young. We have one new person. Look, I actively engage people to let look, you don't have to come participate. We have a brother Marshall Nunes, who represents people with diverse abilities. So thanks for being with us, Marshall. I invited a brother from Barbuda, Brother John Mussington. So I look forward to, thanks for joining us, Brother John. And this is going to be a very, Brother Irving is with us. I'm not going to look good right now, people.
The 19th. Not next week. Oh, the next week.
After this weekend.
Try to hurry up the last week.
Mr. Your mic is on.
Yeah. Off.
Okay, good. All right. So tonight's conversation is, as we've shared, it's going to be about working during COVID-19. And I just quickly wanted to read this paragraph, and then I left it to Dean making explain. No, Dean never know how to do this, do I know what this means, but I have confidence in a Dean. And this is from the preliminary, and when the people have the mic, I'll put the paragraph I'm reading in the chat group. This is from the preliminary overview of the economics of Latin America and the Caribbean 2020. And the first paragraph reads, the coronavirus disease, COVID-19 pandemic, has led to the largest contraction in Belize in recent decades. The economy is projected to contract by 15.5% in 2020, owing to substantial declines in tourism, manufacturing, and distribution, combined with a previously expected decline in agriculture. Job losses in tourism, commerce, distribution, and other sectors have led to higher unemployment in 2020, which will carry over into 2021. Inflation rose to 0.3% up to September 2020, reflecting higher food, health, and housing costs. The fiscal deficit expanded from 3.4% of GDP in the first quarter of 2019 to 11% of GDP for the same period of 2020, because of a sharp fall in revenues, partly owing to the pandemic. The balance of payments current account deficit widened from 1.4% of GDP in the first half of 2019 to 2% of GDP in the first half of 2020, mainly as a result of a sharp decline in receipts in the tourism sector, which was almost entirely shut down because of the pandemic. Now, most Belizean people say that we don't know what the heck they mean, but we know that during the pandemic, many of us are under a mental stress, additional mental stress. Many of us have lost our jobs. Many of us have had to move in with other people, at least for a period of time. Many of us have children who are at home longer than they've ever been at home with us. Many of us, because we have less income coming in and the cost of the products are increasing drastically, are having to choose, do I pay the insurance? If I have insurance to pay, or do I buy food? Do I buy medication, or do I pay the light bill? Thankfully, the utilities have not, to my knowledge, have not been cutting the utilities since we've been living during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we've talked about different parts of these experiences in the past. I'm looking at comprehensively, we're going into year 2. We're closing out almost 2 years. What are some tough life lessons? What are some resets that we've had to do? We're coping, but at this point, especially in Belize City, in particular, it's happening throughout the country. There's an increase in violent crimes. We were hearing of homes burning down, home invasion. Are we starting to crumble under the weight of all that we've been experiencing? And working for ourselves or working for other people, we're feeling it in so many ways. So that's why I wanted us to create a space tonight to hear what have you all been experiencing. As a leader of workers, Dean, tell me your 2 cents.
Well, yeah, I think first and foremost, I think what we see and what we've learned is that whilst and I really don't I mean we have to touch on it on all the negatives that you highlight, which is a result of the pandemic. I think that there is always a light, as they say, at the end of the tunnel now. And I think that light is that COVID-19 has taught us or has reminded us where exactly we came from. I think that we had forgotten that in fact we are a people of the soil. We, as you always remind us, we are Black people, but outside of that, we are now a melting pot with diverse races and culture. And all of us are somehow interrelated to the fact that with our roots people, with our grounds people, with no white man. So this state in which we were in, the fast food, the hustling because of the extra, there was extra cash. I mean, the economy wasn't booming, but for the most part, money was circulating within the economy. The informal sector was booming. Most of our citizens feed off the informal sector. And so when COVID hit, all of that was interrupted. And what it prompted, especially, and I can speak with public officers, it reminded them that, we have our hands, and more importantly, for those of us who have a piece of land here and there, or even in our backyard, I can tell you I've seen some beautiful pictures from public officers who are trying a thing or two to put together some food in their backyard. And I think that for me is the most important lesson from COVID. And that is a plus, because I think if and when, and maybe I shouldn't be so pessimistic, but when we return back to some form of normalcy, I think that we will not abandon where our ancestors, where our grandparents came from, which was tilling the soil, and doing a little bit of groundwork. In addition to that, the pandemic has also reminded us of how vulnerable we are as a people. We were living carefree, even though as poor people, as Black people, you were taught that poverty is no reason for uncleanliness. So it didn't matter how you were brought up as a poor Black person in Belize. And of course, I'm just referring to Black people, which is my background. You were taught that you were supposed to brush your teeth, wash your hands, be mannerly, make sure your house always clean. If you're drinking water from the vat, you sanitize your water, or I don't know if sanitize are the correct word, you drop a teaspoon of Clorox in the vat water, in the rainwater, So I'm not overly upset and discouraged about this pandemic. I think that this pandemic has kind of shook me up and brought me back to where I think I needed to be. Take me out of this rat race where everything that money, and bring me back to reality, which is family, and self-sustainability. They teach me that now, and it's not just about going to the bank and taking out a loan. No, we can't go to the bank because we money stretch. Public officers like myself was cut. So now it brings me back again to discipline in our spending habits. And so I more talk about the positive from COVID-19 than all the negatives that people would harp on, which is, I mean, our reality, the violence that we see here that you spoke about. I mean, it's really sad because people, their mindset is weak, and a lot of them would want to do better, but they simply don't know how. And they're not subjected to environments and leaders that can teach them that there's another way for us to navigate ourselves around this pandemic. And so the quick and fast of it is, like you rightly said, the home invasion, the killing, the continuous killing, because only that now it kind of get more bloody and more brutal right now, and everybody, they use survival as the excuse. So I'll stop there for now.
I value your input and the balance you brought to the conversation. One of the things that stood out that you said, it's a privilege for some of us to be able to look at the joys. For so many people, impoverishment is a way of being, and how they may choose to ease the burden. Oftentimes, many of us are judgmental of them, as if because you are born in a cycle of impoverishment, you ought not to enjoy yourself. You ought not to have children because you were born into a cycle of impoverishment. And to understand that all these things were happening prior to COVID-19, even if we were not paying attention to them. COVID-19 for some of us has brought a level of awareness, a level of individual accountability. For many people, even with their awareness, they are very low energy because what's the solution? People are exhausted with the talking, and it's understandable. And it's almost every day, it's like something else. And so we don't get to hear the joys. Many of us don't get to experience the joys or even recognize that this is a joyful moment to be able to wake up, to be able to eat, whatever it is that you may be eating, that people don't recognize it as moments of joys. For some people, it's an opportunity to revisit their spiritual value system or their religious value system, or even to question it. And so one of the things that made the news this week was the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and the Pandora Papers and the leaking of those documents from many people around the world. And so in Crime Center Review, I asked if there's a link between the Pandora Papers and the culture of violence in Belize. Some people thought, what are you talking about? That has nothing to do with that. And so when we talk about the culture of violence, it's not only the what we're accustomed to identifying as violence, it's the systems that we have inherited from the British, our colonizers, that we continue to enforce and use. Those are violent systems. Those are systems that continue to have people not live dignified lives or are paid living wages. So that's where, any thoughts on that, Dean, when you broaden the conversation about the culture of violence, and it's a privilege for some of us to be able to reset. There are people who are in survival mode for extended period of time, who are not getting anyone who's seeing them. They're not people who are, no one is saying, I see you. I recognize your struggle. I know it's hard. There's within the community, there's no level of care or kindness or interest.
That's a heavy thought, yeah, yeah. But it's the truth that we do have that segment of our society that really and truly feels that way. And I want to, if you allow me, I want to add, since you brought up the Pandora Papers, I want to add that yes, what we're seeing with that forgotten segment of society is related to the Pandora's Papers and what we see exposed within the Pandora's Papers. And in addition to that, I want to speak on how what was revealed in the Pandora's Papers also affect the public service, because the Pandora's Papers also speak to world leaders, politicians, and Belize is no exemption. For years, we have been speaking out and wondering how is it that our own politicians could be paid $80,000 a year and leave office as millionaires. And I want to read an article that was shared with me by Public Service International, if you allow me. It says the Pandora Papers show where the funding for decent work and public services is. Today, which was yesterday, on World Day for Decent Work, we remember all the workers who suffer from a lack of decent working conditions, something we've been pointing out for donkey years where our health sector is concerned. Has nothing to do with the debt grown by the past administration, but has everything to do with what government after government has been doing since 1981, neglecting the health sector. Especially, it goes on to say, especially the overloaded and poorly paid health workers and those 225 million workers who lost their jobs to COVID-19, the majority of them women. We remember the workers still doomed to forced labor. All the public workers laid off because of austerity measures who are still unemployed. The new generations of workers exploited by artificial intelligence and the new platform capitalism, and especially the overloaded and poorly paid health workers who witnessed the loss of so many lives because of government's lack of preparedness and resources. More so lack of preparedness, but definitely not because of lack of resources, but rather exploited resources that we now know are definitely not in our country, Belize, but rather, as one famous minister of economic development said, put me back in my office in Montevideo and Panama so that I could go enjoy, because I don't need this drama here with you. And as we know now, the outgoing administration, we now know several of them can't reside. I think we could call them residents, maybe, in Panama currently, because that is where they spend most of their time. And of course, there are those who would prefer Miami. So, the Pandora Papers that you spoke of, you are right. It's not, the impact is not only within the public sector, but also within that impoverished sector of society, which clearly now it's just worse.
And because I intentionally invited two representatives of people with diverse ability, oftentimes when we have the conversation, there are sectors of our communities who are hardest hit consistently. We often think of impoverished people, which is a wide sector of people, yet we don't necessarily look at immigrants. We don't look at people with diverse abilities. We don't think of elderly people. We don't think of people who have been living with illnesses for an extended period of time. Last night, for example, in Belize City, where you have blackout, and then you have hard rains, and you're living in inadequate homes. It's COVID-19 pandemic. And then you hear shots for a number of people throughout the city. It's a lot for people to deal with. And I think of, and this is another group that it's a shame. We should be embarrassed for me to even say this, but we oftentimes don't really think about our children. And what, like, seriously, what our children, what kind of human beings will they be because of this experience? We are failing. We're failing as adults. We're failing our children. And I agree, there are joyous moments. It's not, the reason why I'm so adamant about shining the light on these concerns, because if we don't acknowledge them and our responsibility in these communal concerns, all of us will live with the fallout of it. Not that we aren't already, but at a deeper, more intense, and for a longer period of time. And it's up to us as people to have these hard, difficult, necessary conversations. At least if it's a spaced event. Even that, to be able to say it in a space of non-judgment and support matters. Yeah. We're not even going to talk about our healthcare workers. We're not even going to, I mean, we ought to talk about, which is absolutely horrendous, that oftentimes when we have the conversation, it's freeing within a pro-vaccine and anti-vaccine, which is the perfect formula for divide and conquer. We could have this conversation outside of that framing where we still care for each other as people and understand that people have a human right, that we can learn to disagree without being hurtful, intentionally hurtful.
Yeah.
Because we're all connected to each other. And we have to do that kind of individual reflection on a day-to-day basis to change how we think and how we act. Touch them and say, that wasn't kind. And when my sister, my brother touched me, it's not for you to get defensive and why to put me in a check. No, take a breath. Thank you, sister. Thank you, brother, for reminding me that we need to be each other's keeper. We have another 5 minutes, Dean, before we pass the mic over to our buff turnout tonight. 14, I'm proud of we. Respect to the turnout, indeed. We have some of our youths with us as well. So definitely when we open up the mic, I want to hear on the voices. I want to hear on the stories. For sure, this is a conversation that can continue in the following weeks if we don't have enough time for everyone to share what it is that you want to say as a worker. Like I said, we have someone from Barbuda. So wherever you are a worker and what your experience has been, what lessons you've learned, if you feel that you've not been heard, if there's some skill sets that you've learned that you want to share with us, what do you want to say to wrap up this segment, Brother Dean?
Yeah, well, I want to, first of all, say thank you, and I need to big you up because you made mention that you saw it fit to invite individuals with diverse and special needs, special abilities, and you are right. I can tell you that for the past, I personally have been in many meetings, and to be honest, there has not been a single meeting that I've been to over the last 20 months in which special needs people came. The needs of special needs people came up.
Dean, the need of people who are identified with living with mental illness came up.
Yes, and that came up last month. we're in October, so that came up last month. I was invited to make a presentation at a forum that was held by the Ministry of Labor, which is mental health. Yeah, it was addressing mental health and how COVID-19 was now clearly highlighting what has always been with us. People has been under some serious uh, mental strain, a lot of mental instability. But these things are now, just like our financial situation, are now being exposed for all to see. So yes, ironically, well, I don't know if the correct word is ironically, but interestingly, it was the Ministry of Labor that spearheaded that, and not, of course, the Ministry of Health. And I find that a bit off, because I think that mental health should be at the forefront of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And I can tell you that when the initial information was shared, um, the address that was to be done by the CEO in the Ministry of Health had decided yet to be confirmed. So again, it shows how insensitive we are to these realities that several families face on a daily basis, individuals with special needs and individuals who are battling mental health. When I brought this up, I think I'm not quite sure in what forum, the president of the BNTU shared that teachers were at a classroom decorating, and one teacher simply just lost it and started tearing down everything that the other teachers has put up. This just happened 1.5 months ago in Belizean, and we don't hear about it. I don't know what assistance is being offered to the teacher. I know here in the public service we have the employee assistance program. Again, the head of that unit was just transferred. Well, he applied for another post and he was relieved. So what state did he leave that unit unmanned? I have not seen an ad. I've not seen a vacancy notice for the filling of that post. And by the way, he was pretty much a one-man show. Imagine one-man show for 16,000 public officers. So I don't know how do we fix it. Yeah. I guess these kind of forums will help to highlight it, point it out, and hopefully things change.
Thanks so much for sharing that anecdotal truth about that teacher, who I'm sure represent the stories of many teachers whose stories we may never hear. It's 7:30. It is time for the people's voices to be heard. Go on, Brother Dean, do what you do.
Well, as you already highlighted, the second segment is dedicated to our guests, our participants who are here with us. And I see 12. If I take out Sister Trish, that would leave me with 11. So we have 11 guests with us tonight. I would like to, of course, invite first and foremost, Brother Nunez, for his comments. Yaya, perhaps you could also advise me. You said you had invited 2 individuals with special needs. I recognize Brother Nunez.
Yes. My biological sister, her African name is Mandisa Ngozi. Everybody else knows as Roxanne Marin. She's under the Aloe Vera community tag here. She works with Brother Nunez. Okay. And so those are the 2 people.
Okay, and of course I want to welcome Brother John Mussington. Looking forward to hearing from him in terms of how things are unfolding in his neck of the woods. But first, perhaps we can hear from Brother Nunez and perhaps the experiences of how individuals with special needs are now being impacted both within the working environment, because we in the public service do have individuals with special needs who are employed within the public service, but also there are those outside now. So Brother Nunez, perhaps you could offer some insight in terms of how COVID-19 is impacting our special needs citizens.
Alone. So my name is Roxanne Marin. I am.
Please put your camera on, Mandisa, and go.
If you could put on your camera, do so as well. And then we'll turn off ours and listen.
Just a reality check. I listened to the first half of the show and the COVID. Hello?
There, Mike.
Okay, sorry. COVID exposed how indiscipline. Less than 1.5% of the workforce is represented. We are less than 1.5%. In Belize, we do the right and dignity of persons with disability. This one show will be far from enough to express the situation as it is. Persons with disability have been invisible, if you will, even before COVID. Even before COVID. In the past, it seemed to have been closer to 1 year. There's been a little bit more discussion and kind of a renaissance of the existence of persons with, and for Yaya, a lot of the problems exist in urban areas. So it has been bad already for a person with disability. And
in your comments, again, another interesting statistics in terms of the amount of person with disabilities that make up the workforce. I think that we're all represented. So thanks very much for that, Brother Nunes.
Allow me to just say this, please, that I am here as an individual and not representing my work.
Okay.
Conference for the end of November.
Okay.
I hope I know this.
An active member and co-founder of the Aloe Vera community. Why is it that I must say myself and Mr. Nunes are past presidents of BABTA, which is the Belize Assembly for Persons with Diverse Abilities in this country. And so we've been advocates for disability for many years. And now it's historical that the government has reestablished the disability desk within the government to service the needs of persons with disabilities from a government platform, which is something that has long been overdue. And so I want to say thanks for being here tonight, and we definitely look forward to more communication and link up with this type of platform for persons with disabilities in Belize. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Your mic is off, Mr. Dean.
Thanks for that, sister. Thanks for highlighting, I said, the fact that under this administration, there is now the establishment of a desk. And I believe that is under the Ministry of Human Development.
Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So let me go right over to our invited guest, Brother John. Good night.
Yes, can you hear me?
Hearing you loud and clear, brother.
Okay, good night. And let me first of all say thank you to Yaya and the brothers and sisters who are meeting tonight for the first time. It's really a privilege to be able to come into your space and to listen in and feel and learn and understand what it is you guys are going through. Let me bring you greetings from Antigua and Barbuda. And for those of you who do not know about these places, you are on the mainland. We are little specks in the middle of the ocean, little islands up the road. So when you talk about Belize City, right, compared to Belize City, Antigua and Barbuda together, you're talking about, say, 80, 100,000 people. And in that small place, you have those of us in Barbuda, which is the sister island, you're talking about at the peak, around 1,800 people. Right now, we're about 1,200 people living here. Okay? So listening to you guys so far tonight, the thing that comes out is how much in common we share. And I listened to the points made by Dean early on in terms of what the lessons that this whole pandemic will bring to us. And some of the things you said, I can see with them, because in a small place like this, what COVID teaches you is that you fall back to what is really close-knit community. You realize how advantageous that is. You are closer to support, you're closer to your food source, you're more farming community and all that and so on. So you see the difference in terms of the urban areas and the challenges that people face when a pandemic like this strikes. I also listen to the plight of the persons with different abilities. And I can tell you, even recently, the head of our group for those persons, you pretty much all the complaints that you're making there, those are the very same things that they are complaining of. So it seems to be something that is common across the region, and it's definitely something that we need to pay attention to and to tackle. Because any community, you are judged by how you can treat those within living amongst you who are at a disadvantage. And it speaks about the quality of your community, how you pay attention to everyone. The other point I need to make before I go is that as you said, the pandemic will bring out the good, and it will be is that there are people who take advantage of the situation. And yesterday, I think Yaya shared the whole scene. There was an interview about the Pandora paper, and what you can actually have a journalist visit and to hear in depth. We are far away, and I can tell you we are involved in that, but we have not yet reached the stage where we can actually have an interview like that publicly with the journalists. So we're still waiting to see how much we're involved in that. So some of the points you made, Dean, about how it's affecting public service people in terms of the wealth, which is basically just transferred out there. Same thing here. So that's the bad part of it. Let me end by the good part of it, in that every one of you would agree that one of the big pluses coming out of the pandemic is the fact that I can be sitting here in my home, Yaya in her space, Dean, you're in space, you're in your space, and we don't have to spend thousands of dollars on airfare and whatever and so on. The technology is there, and that is something that I really appreciate, that brings us together. And as an educator, I can tell you, without the technology, I don't know what would happen to our children and the education system in terms of what this pandemic did to us. So coming out of it, we're going to be coming out with some real good lessons. And if the technology is one of them, that is something that we will just go further and just build upon. So thank you again, Yaya. I did the waters that I will probably never be able under normal circumstances to do that.
Is what matters most is that once we're connected with each other, that in of itself will sustain us. Absolutely important.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, Mike, back to you, Dean.
Yeah, well, thanks very much. Happened. My first instinct was to bring on 2 cup, pick 1, 2 pumpkin and so on. But John, before I let you off the hook though, I read an article, Survivalist Instincts Alive and Well in Barbuda. You said, here it is. In Barbuda, you have you were speaking more, there was a lot of spear fishing going on.
Yes.
Hamadili, game meat, then fishing. So it reminds me of, as a young boy, on my own self and my nephews, my younger brother, who aren't able to do these things. And I was pleased. In fact, you are referring to the youths.
Yes, most definitely. Single youth, and especially particular part of the island, that is how they come up. You think today young people, for entertainment, they find the movies or video games or something. We still have quite a few young people
survive on very limited means. And from a Belizean, like I said, this is the beauty of the pandemic. I won't focus on all the bad. Sister Cynthia.
Yes.
Yes. How is it going? Anything to
Good
contribute
night.
tonight? Good night.
Well, Well, I am remembering. I don't want to say that I like to hear, but when you said earlier on tonight, I don't know how we will fix it. You said that at one point. You were saying something and you said, I don't know how we will fix it. And I thought to myself that that was a genuine, honest, true statement coming from your heart. I don't know how we will fix it. And when you hear somebody say that, to me, it doesn't mean that the person is giving up. It doesn't mean that they are throwing up, that you really don't know how you will fix it, but you will try to find out. And so when I heard that, I smiled to myself and said, well, that is really, truly a genuine statement. I don't know how we will fix it, but we are here talking to one another. And however one might feel that, well, it is just talk, it is still a start. That for someone who here tonight, listening to other people, at least you begin to think, and then from thinking, well, maybe something can happen. And I think the main thing is that we don't give up. I don't know how we will fix it, but it doesn't mean that we are giving up. We
Definitely
don't give
not.
up, never give up. I always say, you might have your highs and your lows. You might feel as if, well, I just feel like throwing the towel. You probably have days like that. Why am I doing this? But it doesn't mean you will give up. Even while you are thinking that you know that you won't give up, you won't give up.
Yes.
And thinking to myself, how could we get young people who are not doing that to even think like that? And I think the first thing is to let them hear that there are young people who are living like that. I guess you have some young people who don't even know that there are young people who...
Urban setting. We have a farmer here. Irving, as a farmer and living in the rural area and being a younger person, what is the vibration? Because like Muslim generation, that was a way of life. Is it still like that, but it's just...
Good night.
Good night. Good night, Brother Irving.
Yes.
Night.
Good night, everybody. It's a pleasure to be a part of this conversation. And Sister Yaya, listening to how to do that. And me personally, I grew up in a rural area, but I never grew up in a farm or anything like that. My grandparents had farm, and my parents never continued it. So I got back one generation and pick up the farming, and I pretty much had to like relearn everything from just the elders, and I never get it directly. But my experience is, and I would literally go foraging, and I would like have cocoon, I would find berries, just like whatever I find on the farm, that what I would have for my meal, and it are really fun because I always find it like I surprise myself, like not knowing what you have for lunch, and then just being so satisfied with all you find. So I enjoy it.
Are there other young people that you know, because you live in a rural area? What's the culture of young people? Are they still farming? Do they have an interest? Is it a combination of rural and urban? Do you think we've lost a generation that live off the land naturally?
People my age, I really don't know much people in my age range that would do that. To be real, the only people I know my age that would live that way. People who are, sad to say, but on drugs or something like that. That's the only, like they would like just go and steal coconuts or something like that to sell, to buy drugs. But it's not really it's not a meaningful way. It's not, they're not doing it for meaningful reasons, if you ask me.
Someone is saying something?
No, that was just my daughter in the background.
Oh,
Sounded like
okay,
a
okay,
child.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's thanks. This is good.
Can
I
I
think
just
what I want
say,
here-
wait, yeah. Can I just say that as Irvin spoke, I was thinking of scouts and guides. That as a young person, when you are a member of that organization, that's the kind of thing that you are taught to really live in the wild, and it's fun. But unfortunately, as I always say in this country, the regression of things that contributed to the character of persons, you know, we have under the mandate of like churches and schools, and these organizations don't seem to sorrow. Maybe they are sorry, but we don't know, because these things don't exist. You know, in many churches that used to have organizations like that, you don't. You used to have the Sea Scouts, the Rangers, the Brownies, the Guides. You know, the brigade, the boys' brigade.
The
You know,
Cub
as I said,
Scouts.
the Cub Scouts. And I think I said it once on this program, that in the church that I attend, which is Wesley Church, the brigadiers ago was like nearly the best band in the country. The scouts and guides and the wild and nature, you know, the love of nature, the love of being able to live out there on your own. You were taught that, you know, you had to take a test to prove that you could do that you could live out there for days, you know, and maybe just sharing it with persons might instill some type of fire in somebody to want to do it and to begin to raise hell, you know, because some of the time you have to raise hell to make things happen. And so maybe talking about it when I get some people will raise hell. I'm done.
Thanks, Muslim. Institutional knowledge is so absolutely critical. It's a way of learning and maintaining our legacies. So it really does matter.
Sister
I
Yaya,
know, yes.
before we wrap up, and Brother Dean, I just tomorrow morning I have a consultation/meeting with the Department of Labor to start the conversation about the establishment of a disability employment agency. And so that conversation starts with the Labor Department tomorrow.
Okay, excellent.
Very good, very good,
Yes.
very good. I like to hear that, Brother Nunes. I like that.
Yeah, Sister Yaya, before we go, I just want to take this opportunity to acknowledge Sister Shan from time to time. I don't know who's behind the galaxy, but Nelson, good night.
Good night.
Of course, I went to BTC where her mom taught, and I think she was a personality on criminal. Yeah. Say good night.
Good
You
night,
wanna
good
put up
night.
your hand? Yeah.
Look, man, we have to hear of Samia. Samia and
Yeah.
Belizean will live in Mexico now, so we're glad Samia. Samia, got anything we want to set away?
No, well, I'm not. No. I mean, something did cross my mind talking about the young kids learning, and Big A is in a position that we especially start thinking about. People being able to produce their own food, and more so the young people, especially with all the stuff going on in Belize City in terms of the violence and all of that. So Big A is hoping to get partners to work with them to create sort of a program like that, where we'd have a group of youths come up to Harmonyville, learn basic farming, produce vegetables, learn to cut sticks from the environment around and produce basic shelter and things of that nature. It's still in the works, but I think we're all in the same boat as in looking for ways that we could go back to the old ways to fix our current situation.
For
And
those who may not know what Big Year is, can you tell us what Big Year is?
everybody should know what Belize is in this group, at least. I hope. So Belize Grassroots Youth Empowerment Association. It was a group that started, what is like 10 years now, with the push to give access to land, especially arable land, to more Belizeans. And so the first big project that I guess they're known for, and we hope that we could, produce more of the same, would be the Harmonyville project. So right now, some people might know that Big A has been running this farming syndicate, where yes, we got land for people from the city, Belizeans who didn't grow up with that lifestyle, and now that a lot of them have the land, might not necessarily know how to produce on the land. Yeah. So then we realized that working together through the syndicate, we could kind of fill in those gaps and share knowledge, and also make it more of a communal experience, which is what it was in the whole Harmonyville thing was intended to be in the first place.
Excellent.
We'll advocate for,
we'll advocate,
we'll advocate for a portion of that, or a percentage of that being person with disabilities.
And that sounds good.
Yeah.
Right now it's 7 minutes after 8. Was there anyone else who really wanted to say something and we didn't give you an opportunity before we close off? Okay.
Since nobody wants to, I really want to share this experience. And in the beginning of the show, we were talking about all the violence and all of that. In 1999, 2000, there was a Bahamian, Dr. Miles Monroe. He died a few years ago. He had come to Belize when I was a part of the city council, and he had said this to me. He said, if we do not invest in our youth, we will not have enough resources to defend ourselves against them. And he said that to me in 2000.
Brother Nunes, are you there?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, could you repeat that? Could you repeat that, Brother Nunes? If we do not invest in our youths.
If we do not invest in our youth, we will not have enough resources to defend ourselves against them. He said that to me in the year 2000. It was prophetic.
Yeah, powerful. It's as powerful as Brother John reminded us tonight. That a society is judged by the way it treats the least of its citizens, So two very very important quotes, if I can refer to them as that, that I learned tonight, or I'm reminded of tonight. Thanks for sharing that, Brother Nunes. Sister Yaya?
Respect. Thanks everyone for such a rich conversation, a very inclusive one. We're encouraging you and asking you to share with other people that we're here on Thursdays. Good night. My mind just got blank when I see me. Mateo. Good night, Mateo. What's up, son? Look, that's my little nephew. Bilingual too, Spanish and English. So yes, it's very important that we tell other people that we're here on Thursday nights from 7 to 8. This is also available on YouTube and Facebook, so people may join at their convenience. We want to say thank you so much. Remember, we're still living during COVID-19 pandemic. Wash your hands, walk with your sanitizers. Do not mingle if you don't have to, as it relates to household. Wear adequate clean masks. Keep your distance, and remember to respect each other's position and to be kind to each other. Only the people want to save the people, and we have to go back to the soil so that future generation will have the sustenance. Now I have to go my taxi outside. One love, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Have a good night.
Take care.
Good night.
Night.
Good night. I'm coming right now.